Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today with a little thought experiment for you listening at home. If I asked you to close your eyes right now and picture a terrorist, who or what do you see?
I think I know exactly where this is going.
You probably see a movie villain,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Someone foaming at the mouth, eyes wide, completely unhinged. You know, the classic lone wolf.
Right.
A psychopath who just wants to watch the world burn for no reason other than chaos.
Which is a terrifying image.
It is.
Yeah.
But if we're being completely honest, it's also oddly comfortable.
Comfortable. That's an interesting word choice for something so scary.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, if they're crazy, if they are monsters, then they're nothing like us.
Ah, I see.
They're a different species, a glitch in the human coding. But we have been reading through this massive stack of sources for today's deep dive.
A very heavy stack.
Yeah, criminological reports, psychological profiles, studies on internet radicalization, and the uncomfortable truth is just staring us right in the face.
That the glitch theory is completely wrong.
Exactly. Our mission today is to ruin that comfort for you. We are going to dismantle the Hollywood myth of the monster and actually look at the mechanics of the criminal mind.
And spoiler alert from all this research.
They aren't usually crazy. They are frighteningly rational.
It is actually their rationality that makes them so dangerous.
Yeah.
We really have a lot to get through today. We've got the criminological report, which is basically the forensic blueprint of an attack.
Right.
Plus, deep dives into victimology and a really counterintuitive theory about how the internet rewires our brains called the side model.
But before we get into the really heavy psychological stuff, you highlighted a distinction in the notes right at the top.
I do, yeah.
3 words that I think most people, myself included, just use interchangeably. Crime, criminal, and criminality.
Right. If we want to really understand this deep dive, we have to stop treating those as synonyms.
Okay.
Think of it like a theater production.
Okay, I'm tracking.
The crime is the play itself. The event, the explosion, the attack. The criminal is the actor. They are the author of that act.
So the criminal is the actual person. What is criminality then?
Criminality is the backstory.
Oh.
It is the set of circumstances, the personality traits, the environment, and the antisocial behaviors that made the act possible in the first place.
Just as the context.
Exactly. It's the context. Today, we aren't just looking at the bomb or the gun. We are looking at the criminality, the entire system that produces the actor.
Let's start with the crime itself, though. The sources talk a lot about the criminological report, or the IC, which sounds very bureaucratic. But reading through it, it actually feels like a script for a CSI episode.
Because it is essentially a forensic expert report. And I think one of the most revealing parts of the IC is the section on victimology.
Which to the layman just sounds like a list of who got hurt.
And that is exactly how the evening news reports, right? 5 injured, 2 dead.
Yeah.
But in criminology, victimology is an analysis of why those specific people were chosen. The sources actually break the victim's experience into 2 components, the objective and the subjective.
Objective is the physical stuff, like the actual injury.
Correct. Death, injury, kidnapping, financial loss.
Yeah.
The tangible, measurable damage.
Right.
But the subjective component is where the terrorism actually lives.
What do you mean by that?
It is the fear. It's the rage, the behavioral changes. The source mentions things like changing your route to work every single day.
Oh, wow.
Or constantly checking under your car. Or just the sudden paralyzing fear of leaving your house.
So the physical attack is really just the delivery mechanism for the psychological attack.
Precisely. The goal isn't just to break a bone, it's to break a habit, to break a community's sense of security.
And I guess that dictates how they pick their targets in the first place.
It does. I found the distinction in the note between risk victims and vulnerable victims really illuminates the difference between types of terror groups.
Yeah, this was the comparison between groups like ETA and jihadist terrorism.
Right.
Walk us through that, because I always assumed a victim is a victim. You know, if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, you're just in the wrong place.
Not to the strategist. Look at ETA, the Basque separatist group.
Okay.
Their victims were often chosen based on what the report calls professional responsibility.
Meaning police officers, judges, military personnel.
Exactly.
So if you were just a baker or a school teacher, you were relatively safe.
Relatively, yes. The source calls police and judges risk victims because their profession inherently increased the probability of being targeted.
There was a specific logic to it.
Very twisted logic, but yes. You represent the state, therefore you are a target.
But then you look at modern jihadist terrorism, or even some of these domestic mass shooters we see, and that logic just dissolves.
Completely. In those cases, the selection is often entirely arbitrary. The goal isn't to take out a judge. The goal is to demonstrate that no one is safe anywhere.
Which creates the vulnerable victims.
Exactly. You aren't targeted because of what you do. You are targeted because of where you are.
Which is terrifyingly effective if you think about it.
Very.
Because if a judge gets killed, I think to myself, well, I'm not a judge, so I'm okay.
Right.
But if a guy just drinking coffee at a cafe gets killed, I think...
I drink coffee. That could be me.
Exactly.
It creates a state of precarious emotional instability in the entire population. Everyone feels vulnerable even if they aren't risk victims in the traditional sense.
It maximizes that subjective component you were talking about earlier.
Yes. It turns the whole world into a potential crime scene.
Speaking of the scene, there was another phrase in the text regarding the victim that honestly gave me chills.
Which one?
Anulación de la autotutela.
Ah, yes. It translates roughly to the annulment of self-defense.
It sounds so legalistic, but the definition is just brutal.
It is brutal. It refers to the terrorist's operational goal to completely remove the victim's capacity to react.
Right.
It isn't a fight. It isn't a confrontation. It is designed from the ground up to be an execution.
So whether it's a surprise bombing or an ambush...
The goal is to ensure the victim has zero agency. They want to strip away the human ability to fight back.
Which feeds right into how they analyze the crime scene itself.
Yes, it does.
Because I think we had this idea from TV that criminals are messy or that they always leave a clue because subconsciously they want to get caught.
Right, the classic TV trope.
But the sources describe very specific types of scenes.
You have pure scenes where nothing is touched, the aggressor commits the act and just leaves.
Okay.
Then you have simulated scenes.
Meaning staged scenes.
Right, altered to mislead the police, like making a murder look like a suicide or maybe a burglary gone wrong.
Okay.
But here is a really interesting nugget from the research. Amañadas, or rigged scenes, are very rare in terrorism.
Really? Why is that? You'd think they'd want to confuse the police to get away.
Because terrorists usually want the credit. Think about it. A burglar wants to hide the fact that he was there because he just wants the money, not the fame.
Right.
A regular murderer might want to cover his tracks to avoid jail. But a terrorist wants to broadcast the act.
They want the pure scene to speak for itself.
Exactly. They want the world to know exactly who did it and why.
That makes total sense. They aren't hiding. They're marketing.
In a very grim way, yes. And when analysts look at these scenes, they break them down chronologically to understand the planning.
So they look at the timeline.
Right. You have the point of contact where the aggressor first approaches, then the primary scene where the main assault actually happens.
And sometimes those are just the exact same place?
Often they are. But sometimes there are intermediate scenes, like transport routes or holding areas.
Okay.
And finally, the final scene, where the body is found or the event concludes. Breaking it down this way helps analysts see the movement.
Maybe you can see if there was hesitation.
Exactly. Was it efficient? Did they stop to eat? All of this brings us to the behavior of the criminal, and specifically the difference between MO and signature.
Okay. I have a huge bone to pick with TV writers here.
Let's hear it.
I feel like on shows like Criminal Minds, they use MO and signature to mean the exact same thing. They'll say something like, oh, his signature is using a .45 caliber pistol.
Yeah, that is a very common error, and it drives criminologists crazy.
I knew it.
The research is very strict about this distinction. The modus operandi, the MO, is strictly functional.
It's the how.
It is the how. It includes everything necessary to commit the crime, protect identity, and ensure escape.
So wearing a ski mask, that's MO.
MO.
Using a specific type of timer on a bomb, MO.
Correct. Those are tools. And crucially, the MO is dynamic. It evolves.
Meaning it changes over time?
Yes, because the criminal learns. If a certain detonator fails, they change it next time. If a getaway route was too crowded, they pick a different one. They are constantly troubleshooting.
Okay, so what is the signature then?
The signature is the why. It is the psychological fingerprint. It represents a deep emotional or fantasy need of the offender.
Okay.
And here is the absolute key to understanding this. The signature is completely unnecessary for the completion of the crime. Wait, unnecessary?
Completely. Think of the concept of overkill.
Like stabbing someone a bunch of times.
Right. Stabbing a victim 30 times when the first strike was fatal. That takes time. It takes energy.
And it risks you getting caught because you're staying at the scene way longer than you need to.
Exactly. It is functionally bad for the criminal. But they do it anyway because they have a profound psychological need to do it.
So in the context of terrorism, what's a signature? Because usually they just want the explosion or the attack.
It might be the specific ritualistic way a message is delivered to the media afterwards. Or forcing victims to kneel in a very certain way before the act, or taking a specific type of trophy from the scene.
So if it doesn't help the operation succeed, but they do it every single time.
That is the signature. That tells you about their soul, not just their training.
Wow, that is dark. But it really leads us to the big question of this deep dive. We know how they act, we know how they pick victims, but why?
Right, the big why. Is this nature or nurture? Or are these people just born with a violence gene, or does the world make them this way?
The eternal question in psychology. And the sources suggest it is rarely just one or the other. There are absolutely biological factors at play.
Like what?
The expert text mentions serotonin and testosterone specifically.
I mean, I know testosterone is linked to aggression, but what about serotonin?
Serotonin acts as a brake in your brain. It regulates our impulses. The research shows that low levels of serotonin are directly linked to high impulsivity.
So you just can't inhibit your reaction.
Exactly.
So if I have low serotonin and high testosterone, am I just a ticking time bomb?
Not necessarily. You have a predisposition. You might have a harder time counting to 10 when you're angry, but biology isn't destiny.
Right.
There are plenty of people with that exact chemical profile who never hurt a fly. They might just be really intense at sports or hyper-competitive in business.
So you need something else.
You need a psychological trigger or a framework.
The notes mentions the frustration-aggression theory, which sounds pretty self-explanatory, honestly. I get frustrated, so I get aggressive.
That's the core of it. It was proposed by Dollard. The idea is that when a goal is blocked, it leads to frustration, and that psychological energy has to go somewhere.
Sure.
But that is a bit too simple for terrorism. Terrorism isn't usually just a tantrum.
Right. You don't accidentally build a complex explosive device because you're frustrated with morning traffic.
Exactly. That takes planning.
Right.
That is why the sources point to Blanchard's emotional calculation. This theory suggests it's not just blind rage, it requires an aversive stimulus.
Something you don't like.
Plus a calculation.
A calculation. Like a math problem.
A cost-benefit analysis. You subconsciously ask yourself, will getting aggressive actually fix this problem? Will it be effective?
Oh, I see.
And this is probably the most important distinction for you to understand today, listening to this. The difference between emotional aggression and instrumental aggression.
Break that down for us.
Emotional aggression is reactive. It's the bar fight.
Okay.
Someone insults you, your heart rate spikes, you swing. It's impulsive, it's driven by fear or rage. It is hot. It happens entirely in the moment.
And instrumental.
Instrumental aggression is cold. It is deeply rational. Violence is viewed simply as a tool, an instrument to achieve a goal.
Wow.
And the source material makes it very clear. Terrorists primarily use instrumental aggression.
So they aren't snapping?
No, they are planning, funding, training, and executing violence to achieve a political or ideological end.
They aren't losing control at all.
They are exerting control. They view the violence the exact same way a carpenter views a hammer, as a means to an end.
That honestly makes them scarier. It means they are thinking clearly the whole time.
It does, and it directly challenges the biggest myth of all that we started the show with, the idea that terrorists are psychopaths.
I think that's the default assumption for almost everyone.
Oh, absolutely.
You look at someone who drives a truck into a crowded market, and you think, you have to be a psychopath to do that. You have to have literally no feelings.
Right.
But the sources say no.
Generally, no. In fact, being a true psychopath might actually disqualify you from being an effective terrorist.
Wait, really? Why is that?
To understand that, we have to look at the clinical definitions. We really need to distinguish between a sociopath and a psychopath.
See, I thought those were just pop culture words for the exact same thing.
Not in clinical psychology. The source distinguishes them very clearly. A sociopath, or someone with dissocial personality disorder, is often nervous, volatile, a loner.
Okay.
They are highly disorganized, they have a really hard time fitting into groups or holding down a steady job.
So they would make terrible sleeper agents.
Terrible, because they draw too much attention to themselves with erratic behavior.
Okay. And the psychopath?
The psychopath is charming, manipulative, and highly organized. They have a total lack of empathy or remorse, and they are deeply narcissistic.
Right.
But here's the kicker. Psychopaths are inherently selfish. Their loyalty ends exactly where their self-interest begins.
Ah, I see where you're going with this. Terrorism is a team sport.
Exactly. Terror cells require intense group cohesion. They require self-sacrifice. You have to be willing to die for the cause and for your quote-unquote brothers.
And a psychopath isn't going to die for anyone but themselves.
Never. A psychopath would likely betray the entire cell the moment it became profitable or necessary for their own survival. They don't play well with others because they view everyone else as objects to be used.
So if they aren't psychopaths and they aren't sociopaths, what are they?
They fit the profile of the organized offender. The sources contrast organized versus disorganized killers.
Okay.
Terrorists are socially competent, they're intelligent, and they plan meticulously. Studies mentioned in the text, like those by Morari or Sageman, consistently find that most terrorists do not suffer from severe psychopathology.
That is deeply unsettling, because it implies that normal people can do this.
It implies that under the right or wrong circumstances, people who are psychologically normal can commit massive atrocities if they view the violence as a necessary tool for a higher moral goal.
Which brings us to the mechanism of how a normal person gets to that point in the first place.
Yes.
It brings us to the internet. Because if these aren't lone psychopaths, they have to be getting radicalized somewhere.
Right. And the old theory on this, pre-internet, was called de-individuation. Think of a mob or a riot.
Like the idea that when you're in a massive crowd, you just lose your individual identity.
Yes, the classic Gustave Le Bon or Zimbardo theory. You put on a mask or a uniform or join a massive crowd, and anonymity plus the group equals chaos.
You become irrational.
Right. Antisocial, a beast. You smash the shop window just because everyone else is doing it.
But the sources say that's outdated.
It's incomplete. It assumes the group makes you lose control. Our sources introduce a newer, much more nuanced theory called the SIDE model.
Psych.
SIDE. It stands for the Social Identity Model of De-Individuation Effects.
Wow, that is a mouthful. What does that actually mean for us?
It was developed by Riker and colleagues, and it challenges the idea that you lose your mind or your identity in a group.
Okay.
Instead, the SIDE model argues that you shift. You shift from your personal identity to your social identity.
So I stop being me and I start being us.
Exactly. And here is the major twist. You don't become chaotic, you become hyperconformist.
Wait, so you become more obedient?
Yes, but obedient to the specific norms of that group. Look at it this way. If you are in a group where the norm is peace and charity, like a group of monks or aid workers,
Right.
and you identify strongly with them, you become more peaceful. You suppress your selfish instincts to help the group.
But if you are in an online forum where the norm is hatred and violence,
You become hyper-violent to fit in. You aren't losing control. You are conforming intensely to show that you are a, quote-unquote, good member of the group.
and the internet just acts as a turbocharger for this entire process.
The source discusses how online anonymity plays heavily into this. Paradoxically, anonymity doesn't just hide you. It strips away your individual differences.
How so?
If I'm talking to you online and I don't know your name, your job, or what you look like, all I know is that you are part of the group.
So the group identity becomes literally the only thing that matters.
It becomes the only reality, and this perfectly explains flaming or aggressive online behavior.
I always thought trolls were just angry people venting.
Sometimes they are, but the SIDE model suggests that flaming is often a form of policing.
Policing.
Yeah. They are enforcing the group's norms against outsiders. It is a way of signaling, I am a good member of this tribe, and I am attacking the enemy.
That explains so much about social media today. It explains how a normal person, just sitting in their basement, can shift their identities so completely that they become capable of instrumental violence.
Yes.
They aren't becoming a monster. They're becoming a perfect soldier for their group.
That is the terrifying reality we have to face. The internet allows for this shift to happen in total physical isolation, yet with the feeling of an intense connection to a global group.
You're alone in your room, but in your head, you're part of an army.
Exactly. You strip away your personal inhibition because your new social identity says that violence is justified or even necessary.
So let's bring this all back together. We started this deep dive with the idea of the monster, the crazy, drooling, psychopath movie villain.
Right.
But the science tells a completely different story.
A much more complex story. We learned from the criminological report that these attacks are analyzed forensically, showing us the crucial difference between a functional MO and a psychological signature.
We learned about victimology, how victims are chosen either to remove specific risks, like with ETA, or to create a universal sense of vulnerability, like with jihadist groups.
We learned that the violence isn't usually an emotional snap, it's a calculated instrumental tool.
And perhaps most importantly, we learned that terrorists aren't typically psychopaths at all. They are organized, rational actors who have undergone a profound shift in identity.
Driven by that side model mechanism, shifting from I to we, the anonymity of the internet doesn't create random chaos. It creates hyperconformity to a group that might believe violence is the only way forward.
It really forces you to rethink the whole concept of evil. It's not necessarily a malfunction of the brain, it's a function of the group.
Exactly. It completely removes the comfort of thinking, oh, I could never be like that.
And that leads me to a final thought for everyone listening right now.
Okay.
If the mechanism of radicalization is just a shift from personal to social identity,
Right.
something we all do when we put on a sports jersey or join a passionate political debate, how secure is that line? Under the right pressure, in the right echo chamber, how close is the average person to crossing the line from passionate supporter to instrumental actor?
That is the question we should all be asking ourselves.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It was a pleasure to be here.
See you next time.